Football Manager 2026 tactical overhaul has left us with a lot of questions. And if you've only watched the video but skipped the article, you're missing out on some key details from FM26. We now have in possession and out of possession formations. But how does this affect player roles and player preferred moves? What happens in transition? What are the new player roles and how do they work? And how will pressing system work this year? And are we to expect more of the same high pressing systems and low blocks that don't defend so well? Let's look at the main feature for this year's tactical overhaul. When we create a tactic on FM26, we'll first pick the base formation and then we get a prompt to choose our formation in and out of possession. On the tactic screen, we see sections for in possession and out of possession player instructions. This means we will now have to choose 2 player roles per player in our tactic. It's a kind of freedom we want, but what Football Manager also tells us in the article is that there are consequences to how crazy you can go with your role selection. Imagine asking Phil Foden to play as an inside forward while in possession, then asking him to play as a ball-playing defender when out of possession. That would be crazy, right? In possession, out of possession is not a new feature in FM though. It's been hard-coded into the game all along, just that now we get to choose what happens. Back in FM24, if you choose inside forwards and wing backs on attack in a 4-3-3, your team's in possession shape should turn into a 2-3-5. However, player preferred moves had a way of influencing what happened on the pitch far more than any player role or team instruction. But in FM26 Advanced Tactical Overhaul, Football Manager speaks very little about player preferred moves. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to player preferred moves later on. In possession, out of possession has its limit. This is not necessarily a bad thing. What Football Manager is telling us here is that your assistant manager, the guy who gives the thumbs up during the tactic presets, will help you make the right decision. For example, what if I want my team to set up in a back 3 when out of possession, but attack in a narrow 4-3-3 shape? Will that be possible? My assistant manager will tell me, just like he did in FM24, if that is the right decision or not. I hope FM26 tactic screen acts a bit like Rate My Tactic webpage that told us categorically what was going on in the tactic. Football Manager tries to answer this question with the visualizer. Think of it as a tactical analyzer that will show you how your players will shape up at every phase of the game. It's split into 3 horizontal zones: defensive third, midfield and attacking third. So with the player roles selected in a 4-4-2, if you have an inside wing back, that's a new role by the way, the player will end up in midfield when the team is in possession. Out of possession, if you keep the same inside wing back role, the player will do as the role demands. But what if instead of an inside wing back, I ask my player to be a normal fullback out of possession? If he's caught in midfield when we lose possession of the ball, what happens? That is the question. Now there's little information about what happens in transition. As far as I know, Football Manager 2026 doesn't have in transition instructions. My guess is most of what we decide in and out of possession will guide the team on how to behave in transition. Another thing that excites me and bothers me about FM26 is our pressing systems. With the new tactical setup, I expect pressing to be a lot better this year. But in FM24, if you played in a 4-3-3, you know that your striker is going to be isolated. This made pressing very difficult in that formation. With the new FM26 tactics, we can now ask our wide forward to either help the striker and press narrowly in a front 3, or stay out wide with the fullback when out of possession and join the striker in a narrow front 3 when in possession. It's a tiny detail, but you won't believe that it was impossible to do this in previous Football Manager games. You could try manually setting player marking instructions, but it just wasn't as effective. I can't wait to see how pressing works in Football Manager 26. And for some of us that like to sit off in a low block sometimes, I hope the new out of possession instructions will help the team defend better. If we can create a super attacking system for in possession, is it possible to set up a super defensive low block when out of possession? Or will my assistant manager also tell me that that is not a good idea? The problem with meta tactics on FM24 is that they were too attacking and sometimes left my team vulnerable to counterattacks. What the tactic gurus did was to use fullbacks on attack instead of wingbacks to compensate for the tactics over attackingness. It worked. On FM26, I'd like to create a defensive tactic that consistently works, not just one that sits back and allows the opposition to do whatever they want with the ball and then still score eventually. Okay, now for player preferred moves. If you played Football Manager as long as I have, you know that the player preferred moves have a huge effect on how your players execute your tactic. 2 teams playing the exact same tactic, plug and play, with 2 different squads and 2 different player preferred moves, will perform the tactic differently. How does player preferred moves affect our tactic in and out of possession? I've touched on this briefly already, but one of the favorite parts of Football Manager for me is when I'm creating a tactic and then I set up a team with all their preferred player roles, using as little team instruction as possible, and then watching the players play the game the best way they know how. It's satisfying. I learned that from Deep Line Playmaker YouTube channel. You're not going to force any instructions, everything just happens organically. This is only possible because of player preferred moves. If I ask a player that prefers to cut inside with the ball to play the role of a winger that stays out wide, won't that clash with his player preferred moves? And how would that affect team shape in possession? Or better still, a segundo volante style defensive midfielder that likes to get forward, what if I ask him to play as a defensive midfielder that stays back to protect the defense while everyone gets forward, just because he's my fastest defensive midfielder and can track back to stop counterattacks? Will that clash with his preferred move of going forward whenever possible? And how will that affect our team shape out of possession? I'd like to see more tactical developments, but I feel Football Manager has already shared enough with us, and we're at that point where we need to feel the game for ourselves and answer these questions. Now, player roles have also been revamped this year. Football Manager said goodbye to Metala, Enganche, and Trequartista roles, and they also added some new functionalities to the inside forward role. These are all things that we need to see during the game, but there are new roles that came out this year. Most of them feels like they are the same roles, but they've just been tweaked and been given a new name. One role I would look at is the no-nonsense goalkeeper. That just sounds like the standard goalkeeper to me, a goalkeeper that's going to hold on to the ball when he makes a save and then just kick it long into gameplay again, like long kicks. That's almost like the standard goalkeeper on defend. So adding the name no-nonsense goalkeeper kind of combines the duty of a no-nonsense centre-back with that of a standard goalkeeper. So it's pretty much like a name change to me and not a new role. We also see a ball-playing goalkeeper this year, and for me, again, feels like a name change from what we used to call the super keeper on support. The super keeper on support will obviously help the backline in build-up play and try to get in between the two centre-halves and also continue build-up play like that. That almost feels like ball-playing goalkeeper to me. We have the overlapping centre-back, which also feels like the wide centre-back on support duty. He's a centre-back that is going to get forward and overlap. So it feels like what Football Manager is doing here is breaking up the role into different roles instead of just having a role that has different duties. So from what I heard in the article itself, it says here that we may no longer have duties in Football Manager. So we just have roles that are different. So a wide centre-back may no longer exist, and then we have an overlapping centre-back instead. So in case we do have the wide centre-back, he may not have a duty, and then you can see that we have an overlapping centre-back, which is supposed to be the wide centre-back on support. We also have a playmaking wing-back and an advanced wing-back. So these are two new roles that are inside the game. Playmaking wing-back is going to be almost like the Trent Alexander-Arnold style role, a kind of wing-back that would be a wing-back on support duty, while the advanced wing-back is going to be a wing-back on attack. So for what I'm seeing here, it's almost like Football Manager is breaking the roles into parts and then giving them new names. We see a midfield playmaker is different from the advanced playmaker that we used to know. So I do hope that the advanced playmaker is still in the game, because there is no news on how they have changed the advanced playmaker. What we see here also, that now that Metala is gone, we see a channel midfielder and a channel forward. A channel forward and a wide central midfielder. So the wide central midfielder is going to be replacing the Metala. It's essentially a Metala. And then the channel forward is almost like an advanced forward in a way, but hopefully if the advanced forward is still inside the game, channel forward is going to be a forward that moves into channels. So that is the vibe that I'm getting from player roles. Nothing really new, almost like tweaked player roles with new names and then the duties being removed. Okay, not exactly removed, but combined into a new role. So rumor has it that Football Manager 2026 beta could be out around the 21st of October, so it's close. And when the game drops, I'll try to share more tactic videos with you, but not in the way that we had it in previous games. Bear with me, I'm also a student of the game. So rather than throw a set of instructions and player roles or test results to you and hope that it also works out for you, I would like us to understand why a tactic works. So our format for FM26 might just be different. See you soon.